it started raining right about the time that the tours were starting. And so, right, we're from California. We're, we don't do great in the rain. So for us, it was raining heavy. Probably for other people, it was just a little bit of drizzle.
Sam and I would have just been like, where's the Gore-Tex? Let's go. Welcome back, everybody, to this week's episode of the DCL Duo podcast, brought to you by My Path Unwinding Travel. And it is just me today, folks. Sam had an appointment come up last minute before the recording, and so she is off doing that. But fear not, we have a fun topic, a fun guest, and so we will get you through your dose of DCL Duo. But first, I've got to read a listener review. This one comes from Sammy VO820, who writes, my Disney cruise go-to, actually, is the title of the review. And Sammy writes, after joining our cruises Facebook page, I read a recommendation to check out an episode of the DCL Duo featuring a New York Bermuda itinerary. I have been looking for Disney cruise podcasts and was immediately hooked. I started listening to every episode that featured the dream or first timers. Whenever it was time to cook or clean, the DCL Duo podcast was on to make the time go faster. Soon, I was learning about itineraries I'd never thought of or could only dream of experiencing. Listening to the DCL Duo podcast not only got me excited about my first cruise, but future cruises. The firsthand accounts of their guests are both informative and entertaining. I love that Brian and Sam are as passionate about Disney as I am, but are also honest about shortcomings, even if they are few and far between. I appreciated that they took the time to answer my question both via email and on air. Thanks for the advice. We were in the third or fourth row of every stage show in the Walt Disney Theater. Much like the Birnbaum book is the Disney Bible for trips to the parks, the DCL Duo podcast is my go-to for all things Disney cruise. Now that we're back from Bermuda, I can't wait to plan my next sailing with the help of the DCL Duo. Well, Sammy, thank you for that copious review there. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad that our tips helped out. We always wonder, sometimes we give some tips on the air, and if people follow them, never quite sure if they work out in their favor. So good to know, good to get that feedback. I'm sure Sam will be happy to hear that review as well. So thank you so much for leaving that. And for all of you out there, if you want to help support the show, best way to do it, head over to Apple Podcasts, leave us one of those 5-star reviews, hit the 5 stars over there, or leave us a written review, and we will read it on the air at the top of one of our main episodes. But with that, I want to shift gears and welcome back to the show, Sabrina. Welcome, Sabrina.
Thank you, Brian.
I am excited to have you back. The last time we talked to you, for anyone out there listening, was episode 361 about a fantasy cruise that you took. But tonight, we're going to be talking to you about one of our favorite itineraries, the Southern Caribbean, although a little different than the one that we've done, but still excited to talk about it nonetheless. Before we dive into talking about your Southern Caribbean cruise, though, Sabrina, remind folks of your Disney Cruise Line background.
Oh, sure. Started cruising with Disney in 2007. And let's see, cruised in 2007, I think did the Wonder out of Port Canaveral. And so that was the very first one when they did land and sea packages. So spent a few days at Walt Disney World in the scorching hot month of August, and then got on the Wonder, and then just caught the cruising bug after that. So we tried another cruise line. We took 2 cruises on that other cruise line, and now this cruise was number 9 for us. 8 or 9, one of those. But for us with Disney, we've done some of the Eastern Caribbean, we've done Western Caribbean, Bahamas, obviously. We did a Mediterranean, which we absolutely loved. And now we're here to talk about the Southern Caribbean, which we're really excited about. Just wasn't enough days. So definitely caught the bug.
Are there ever enough days on a Disney cruise? I mean, I know some people are like, I can't do it forever, but I think I'd love to do just like a world cruise length cruise on Disney Cruise Line, although my pocketbook could ever afford it. So
there is that. And we loved this one, and we were so excited about it because on the Fantasy last year, we had a stop in Puerto Rico. And so we thought, oh, we definitely want to come back here. This is a place. So when I saw this itinerary post, and it's all these places that I've never been and my cruising pals have never been. And so we thought, let's do this. And it ports out of Puerto Rico. So even better, we can spend a few days prior and hang out in Puerto Rico and just have a great time And that's what we did. And I just say it was too short because we had a port stop every single day, and which is great, except we only had one sea day. And I just wish we had one other sea day maybe thrown in there. Or I've heard of these 9-day Southern Caribbeans or 11-day Southern Caribbeans. And I wish I could have been on one of those, but I will take my 7-day versus nothing. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, look, 7 days on a Disney cruise is better than no days on a Disney cruise for sure. So I don't blame you. Let's talk about, so you were on the Magic for this sailing. Is that right?
Yes, on the Magic. And our friends, which are our same cruising party from last year on the Fantasy, the Fantasy was their first, Disney Cruise Line experience. And so I thought, are they going to be okay on the Magic? It's smaller, it's older, I don't know. But then from the podcast, I kept hearing, right, the Magic was coming out of dry dock. There was now this new Soul Cat Lounge. It was it was a shiny penny. So I was really excited at that point to get on it. And I thought, even if it's not perfect and even if it's not the Fantasy, it's still a Disney cruise and we're still going to have a great time.
Was this your first time on one of the classic ships, or had you been on like the Wonder before?
I'd been on the Wonder and the Magic before. So this was
Okay.
actually third time on the Magic, but I think my last time on the Magic was maybe 2015.
Okay. So yeah, quite a while. And obviously the dry dock improvements. Sure. So what made you gravitate toward the Southern Caribbean as opposed to maybe another Magic sailing?
My husband and I have done, Eastern and Western before, and we were definitely looking for something unique. And so Southern Caribbean kind of scratched that itch. And these were all ports aside of Puerto Rico that we had never been to before. And
Right.
I thought, oh, that would be great, right? Or we've been to Cozumel, we've been to, St. Thomas, we've been to those places and we love them. They're great. But having the opportunity to discover something that we hadn't before or maybe wouldn't easily get to, that was really appealing. And then it just happened to be on the Magic. So I thought, hey, okay, let's do it.
Nice. Nice. So this cruise went in and out of San Juan. Was it a round trip to San Juan, or was it a one way out of San Juan?
Round trip to San Juan. The cruise right before was the one way from maybe Fort Lauderdale to San Juan.
Okay.
We had some backers on the cruise. So I thought,
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. They seem to be present on every cruise now on Disney. The secret is out. What port stops did you have on this itinerary?
so this one was jam packed with ports. It was a port every single day, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., which was great just with one sea day. So we ported in St. Kitts, St. Lucia, Dominica, Barbados, and Antigua. And then back, one day at sea, then back to Puerto Rico.
Say that one more time. St. Kitts, St. Lucia, Dominica.
Dominica,
Yeah.
Barbados,
Yep.
Antigua.
Antigua. Okay. That's interesting. A 7-night cruise with only one sea day. How was, I mean, I don't want to skip all the way into the cruise, but like, how was that? Because I'm a big fan of the sea day personally, but like overall, was it nice not to have the sea day, or did you miss it?
I missed the sea day. So I was so excited about all the stops because I thought all of these places we've never been, they're tropical, they're beautiful. We're going during hurricane season, but fingers crossed, everything will be okay. And thank goodness it was. And I was really excited about that. I thought something to do every day, something new, great. But by about that third day, I was tired and I just
Yeah.
wanted a sea day.
Yeah, that's always the thing that I appreciate, the downtime that comes on cruises. There's cruises you can pick out there that are intended not to be downtime, like Norway or Alaska or going to Europe or port heavy. But in the Caribbean, I really look forward to that. Like, we're at a port, but there's downtime. So I'll be interested to see how that plays out through your shore excursions, what you did off the ship, and all that sort of stuff as we get into this more deeply. But so you mentioned you sailed during hurricane season. Did that help out with the price at all for Disney?
I think it did. So we don't have children. So we are not bound by school schedules or anything like that. So sailing off season, right, non-summer, non-spring break, non-holidays, that works for us. And sometimes the pricing is a little bit lower. So that was another thing that was attractive. I thought Southern Caribbean, right? We had veranda rooms and the pricing was pretty comparable to what we paid for that Eastern Caribbean out of Port Canaveral. So I thought, yeah, we have to do this. And sure, it's during hurricane season, but we'll take the risk. We'll figure it out.
Hopefully, by the time this show has come out, we will have more widely broadcast that. So we have started a new podcast, a second podcast called DCL Disney Cruise Line in a Minute. It's meant to be sort of short snippet episodes. It's a kind of 101, 401 curriculum for new cruisers. So very like 1 to 3 minutes each. But one of the things we were talking about recently as we were recording was timing and how timing can really influence then price. And so like sailing at shoulder seasons or during hurricane season, there's a gamble there in hurricane season the weather might impact. Maybe I should ask this question. Did you have some trip insurance just in case?
So my husband and I always talk about this and we roll the dice and we do not get trip insurance. Our friends are not as daring and they all got trip insurance just in case. We did not. Another reason this, and we sailed during hurricane season before, so we're like, but another reason too that this was appealing to me, now I'm remembering this when I was looking at the dates, we flew out on election night. And so part of me was like, I need a little bit of escapism. I'm okay flying out on election night and landing in Puerto Rico the day after the election and just, a little bit of escapism is what I was looking for. So that kind of helped a little bit too. This cruise was a Friday to Friday, so as opposed to Saturday. So I think that kind of helped with some of our flights and pricing. We weren't flying on a Friday or Saturday, like over the weekend, coming back on a Saturday. So we flew out on a Tuesday,
Oh,
and yeah, things weren't crowded. And
where, where, where were you flying from? Whereabouts were
so
you?
we live in California, so West
Oh,
Coast. Yes.
yes. That's a long flight to get to San Juan for sure. I assume, was it direct? I mean, I don't know if you can get a
It
direct
was
flight.
not.
Yeah.
We did. It was kind of a nightmare, not a nightmare, but we did. Let's see, where we live in California, we had a quick layover, plane change in Phoenix, and then Philadelphia.
Oh, wow. So two stops. Yeah.
3 hours in Philadelphia, and then a direct from Philadelphia to San Juan. So we took the red eye out on Tuesday, and then we ended up in San Juan about 2 p.m. on Wednesday.
Okay. Still gave you some time in San Juan though to enjoy pre-cruise. Where'd you stay in San Juan?
Yeah, there was a Courtyard Marriott that was maybe a mile and a half from the port. So we stayed there. We're a Marriott family, so we are happy to stay anywhere there's a Marriott. We know what we're getting when we stay at a Marriott. And it was super convenient. There were a lot of cruisers staying there. We found out on Friday morning as everyone was downstairs waiting for transportation. And it was really easy. It was walking distance. My husband actually got up one morning and went for a walk. And he said, oh, yeah, he sent us pictures of the Magic when it was in port. That was Friday morning. And he said, it's really close. We could probably walk there. And I thought, I'm not dragging my suitcase downstairs and, and across the highway. So there were a lot of taxis available, and the Bell service just got us one of those taxi vans for 5 of us. Loaded all of our luggage. I think it was $40 to go the mile and a half, but we paid for convenience, and that was fine.
Yeah. I think the only port that I would still recommend the walking strategy. Actually, there's 2 ports I recommend the walking strategy in because I've seen them. I'm sure there might be others. One is in San Diego because you can stay at a hotel like right across. And the other one is in Vancouver because you can actually stay in a hotel that basically sits on top of the cruise terminal. So you can just walk right across the street again. I thought New Orleans would be one of these ports, and we stayed really close to the port there in New Orleans, but then that turned out to be never walk to the New Orleans port if they ever go back there. It is not walkable or not easily accessible. So Was the cruise leaving out? So we were just in San Juan on the Fantasy over New Year's Eve, and the pier that we were at was like right across from Old Town, and there was like a little airport just kind of kitty corner to us that the planes actually had to fly kind of around the cruise ships to land at. Is that where you just, or were you embarked too, or were you in a different? Okay, where were you? Yeah.
We were closer to that T-Mobile Entertainment District. So there's a port on that side. So last year on the Fantasy, when we visited Puerto Rico, we stopped at that port right across from Old Town, right? Where you're just right there. But embarking, it was the other port.
When we were in port there, they had a ship, and I'm trying to remember which cruise line it was. I think it might have been Viking, actually. That was trying to do an embarkation out of that port, and it did strike me as like not a great port to try and embark out of because there was really no facility for everyone to like. It was just basically a long line out the street and down the sidewalk to get on. So yeah, that's good to hear. How was the? Well, actually, before we get to the port, what did you get up to, and did you have anything planned in San Juan pre-cruise that you really wanted to do?
Yeah. So the only thing we really had planned aside of sightseeing and, checking out local cuisine was we took a tour of Casa Bacardi. So the Bacardi rum factory. And that was a lot of fun. We took a midday tour, I don't know, 1 or 2 o'clock. And we were there for, I don't know, maybe 2 hours. And it was a lot of fun. It was about, I took some notes. It was about $50 per person. And this included 2 drinks pre-tram tour and then a little tram tour of their facilities. And then there was also a tasting of different types of rum. We had some great guides. They were entertaining, they were informative. And so they just made the whole experience fantastic. And it was $50 well spent for what we received. And there was even something at the end that our friends opted to do. They bottled their own spirits. So that was a lot of fun. They made a custom label. So now they have these beautiful bottles, custom labels of the Bacardi of their choice and the wax seal. It was a whole production.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. After that, we wanted to see the T-Mobile Entertainment Center, and because we had spent time in Old San Juan before on our last year when we were there, so we thought, oh, let's go check that out. And we heard it was like an outdoor mall type of thing, lots of shopping and restaurants and good people watching and whatnot, a convention center. So we thought, let's go over there, and took a quick Uber there. And then we walked up, and it was closed for a private event. So that's okay. We found a local, like a restaurant not too far from there, just across the waterway, and we had dinner there, and it was just really good people watching and just walking around and taking some pictures. So that was a lot of fun. My husband actually got a little bit more adventurous, where he found a local place to get a haircut. He went and checked out some local cafes and was just, exploring San Juan on his own, walking around, and he loved it.
Nice. I mean, Old Town especially, well, Old Town is hilly, but ultimately San Juan's fairly walkable. So I think that's that like exploring on your own is an option. Did you try, so Sam will kill me if I don't ask if you tried any mofongo while you were there or not. The known dish of Puerto Rico, I feel like, is this mofongo. Did you eat any place that you would recommend? Maybe is the question I should ask.
So the place that we ate for dinner was just not memorable. It was okay. It was a place. It was okay. Our last trip there, we definitely had the mofongo in Old Town and whatnot. And funny, the courtyard where we stayed had a restaurant downstairs attached to its lobby, and the food there was really good. And I was surprised, right? It's hotel cuisine. You don't have my expectations, but it was really, really good. So we ate there once or twice actually for breakfast and lunch, or breakfast and dinner, and we were satisfied.
Nice. I mean, yeah, there's good food can be found in many different ways. So yeah, what resources actually, I want to go back for a second and just say that Bacardi tour, it's been 20 years now, easily, maybe even longer. But I did that tour with my dad because he was in the liquor business, and we were in San Juan, and it is a really good tour. It sounds like it's, evolved, not surprisingly. I'll also say one of the things I loved about it is when you got to the end, they let you like sample some of the different like flavored Bacardi rums and different rums that they have. I don't know if they still do that, but it was kind of nice to be able to, just try something new that you hadn't tried before at the distillery. So it's a fun tour. It's a fun tour. What did you? I mean, did you have any resources you used to kind of figure out what you wanted to do in San Juan pre cruise?
What my cruise party, everyone kind of contributed. So, folks were looking things up, from simple things like TripAdvisor, things to do in San Juan, right? And things to do pre-cruise, right? So we were just doing little searches like that and then throwing some ideas out there. What about this? What about this? And we didn't want to do anything too heavy, too jam-packed, not sure how everyone was going to feel, post such a long flight because we all came from California. And so we settled on this and we were fine with that. Like, oh, okay, this works. It checks the box of something fun to do. It's relaxing and it's not like, hey, let's go for a hike and let's go check out this fort, which we knew we could do, but we just chose not to do on this trip.
All right. Well, we get to boarding day. It sounds like you made the smart decision not to walk to the port. Did you just grab Ubers to the port, or like how'd you get over there?
Yeah, Bell Service arranged a taxi van for us, and so our luggage and our party of 5, and it was $40, easy breezy, all cash. Bring cash.
Now, I know you mentioned in your pre-show submission that like smoothest embarkation or one of the smoother embarkations you've had. So yeah, talk to us about like what the port was like and like when did you what was your port arrival time and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so port arrival time was 12:15, and it was easy and efficient. And I did not know what to expect, right? At knowing and like listening to the podcast, some of these ports that Disney doesn't port out of all the time, sometimes they can be a little bit bumpy and maybe everything isn't running as smoothly and everybody isn't trained on the exact same things. So I wasn't really sure what to expect. And I thought, okay, well, we're going to get there and we're just going to roll with it. And it's going to be fine because we're going to be on a Disney cruise. And we got there and port arrival time was 12:15 and we got there right around 12:15. And by then they already had the signs out for 12:45. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we walked right in. There was no line. We walked straight up to somebody to look at our passports. And from there, we were moving the entire time. And I was shocked. I was looking around and just surprised that we were just in constant motion and we could see the ship and it's right there and we're headed there. And I thought, oh, okay, well, we're going to get to this next spot and they're going to stage us and we're going to have to just wait until our boarding group is called. And that's fine. That's usually what happens. And so they, coated all of our magic bands and we kept on walking and nobody stopped us. And I looked over to my, to the left at one point and I just said, can we just walk on the ship? They said, yep, the ship's right there. Walk right on. So we did. And it wasn't raining. So that was great too, because when we first arrived in Puerto Rico on Wednesday, it downpoured. But we had good weather after that. So embarkation day was great. And we walked right onto the ship. So just the efficiency and the ease was good. And one of our friends said to us, he looked over and he said, 100 times better than Port Canaveral.
So I'm curious to know, do you know what the earliest port arrival time was for the ship?
11 a.m.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think we've given this tip on the show before, but if you don't like waiting, one of the things you can do is take a later port arrival time. On a shorter sailing, I recommend getting on the ship as soon as you possibly can because, like a 3-4 night, like that day of embarkation counts as one of the days on the ship. A 7 night, it counts, but you've also got like 6 days ahead of you. So it's not as important, I think, to squeeze every hour out of the cruise. But if you get that later port arrival time, our experience even at Port Canaveral for some cruises has been you show up and like the luggage drop off is ready to go. The porters are there. You walk in, like it just is a constant flow, especially once they've gotten through kind of the first few boarding groups. And then it's the real problem, I will say, is boarding group 2. I think it's boarding group 2. Boarding group 1 is concierge and family of the day, basically. Or family of the day is, outside. Boarding group 2, I think, is where they put every pearl and platinum cruiser. And so like boarding group 2 is like this insanely large boarding group now. And so once you get into boarding group, 4, 5, 6, it really is like smaller groups. And then you can kind of quickly get on the ship. So if you're someone who doesn't want to wait in the terminal, just go a little later, and I think it'll be highly efficient. So good to hear.
That's good advice, because now that I hear you say that, now that I think about it, on our fantasy cruise last year, that's what we did. We wanted to get the earliest port arrival time, and we had arranged transportation from the Orlando airport, Disney transportation. So the Orlando airport to the port. So we got there, and there was a lot of just sitting around and waiting, right? Waiting at the airport, because I think we had to get to the area around 9 or 9:30, and then we're waiting. And then the first bus leaves around, I don't know, 10 or 10:30. And then we get to the port, and then we're waiting. But you're so excited and you just want to get on. And we were boarding group 3, and there was so much waiting. Now, I think I'm taking this as a genius tip of 12 or 12:15. That is the sweet spot for boarding.
Your mileage may vary there if the Coast Guard had, sometimes the ships get held up for a Coast Guard drill or something like that, and then the whole boarding process gets backed up. But yeah, generally the sort of later you're willing to push it, the less of a wait you'll have. I'm curious, did the sailing feel full? Okay, that's another factor that might impact there as well. I will say the other tip I want to give is if you're forced to wait in the terminal, it's a great opportunity to check and see if you can join the ship's Wi-Fi. Because if you can sit there with the app and start to like favorite all the stuff you want to do while you're sitting there waiting, which I think is also a good use of time. But so how full did the ship feel, or did you get any idea of numbers?
We were told 2,200 people, which feels pretty big for the Magic.
Yeah, that does sound pretty big for the Magic. I'm trying to remember while we're talking, I might look up the capacity here on the Magic, but it doesn't sound like a light sailing. Will you get on board, Sabrina? What before we dive into talking about some of the ports, which are the star of the show, we always like to ask folks, like, where do you head on day one, after you've gotten on board?
Yeah, well, from listening to the podcast, I learned of this thing called sit-down lunch. This opportunity to have lunch without chaos of cabanas. So we headed to Rapunzel's and had a sit down lunch, which was needed, and we just really enjoyed ourselves. And that was the start. But what was funny is we board the Magic, super excited. We're in Puerto Rico, really, really great. And there was it felt like a very steep incline to get onto the ship. My gosh, I feel like I'm hiking at this point. So we get on board and we enter on deck 4. So we're just one level above the atrium, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're excitedly waiting for them to ask our family name and announce us. And it was nothing. It was silence. It was some hand clapping and welcome, welcome. And we all just looked at each other, a little anticlimactic. Oh, okay. Well, I guess they're not announcing anyone to.
That's interesting. Yeah, we've boarded, definitely not like in New Orleans. You had to board on a different deck, but they still had us like walk down the atrium stair. There was some way that we got to the atrium, and they did our announcement. So yeah, that's kind of a unique Disney thing. I'm surprised they didn't find a way to do it for you.
Yeah. So we just got onto the floor, and then we just awkwardly stared at each other and kept on walking to let the family behind us board. So. Then I said, okay, well, let's go down to the atrium. Let's do this right. We'll introduce each other, and did that. So, but yeah, so after a great lunch, at Rapunzel's, we headed toward Soul Cat Lounge, and I remembered, let's see if we can get a Palo reservation. Now, knowing there was only one day at sea, I was not expecting this to happen, but I figured I'd try it. And so stopped by the desk, and they said, we can definitely get you in for dinner. But of course, we wanted brunch, like everyone wants brunch because it's amazing. And the gentleman said to me, I have 55 people on the waiting list right now for Palo, but I'll still take your name. And I said, okay, it's fine. I'm sure it's a no, and that's okay, right? We'll do it another time. And then we realized, hey, we're in Soul Cat. Well, let's check this place out. And that's where we kind of posted up for, I don't know, the next few hours before the what is it, the muster drill. So we enjoyed welcome drinks at Soul Cat and made friends with a great bartender there, Carlos, who was fantastic. And we spent so much of our cruise in Soul Cat, right? That was our pre-dinner place, our post-dinner place, our between trivia place. We just really, really enjoyed it. And it's such a versatile space, whether it be trivia is happening there or crafts are happening there. And so we enjoyed it, and so much so I guess this was something I had never seen before. So we definitely got some Disney magic at the Soul Cat Lounge, because the last night of the cruise, Carlos, our amazing bartender who we saw so frequently, he actually presented us with these looks like certificates.
Oh yeah, magical moments,
Yeah,
magical moment certificates. Yeah,
that it
yeah.
had our family name on it, and it said, residents of the Soul Cat Lounge, and it's been a pleasure. And so I just thought that is such a wonderful, wonderful touch. And he gave one to each of us, and it was just fantastic. So something that we'll definitely cherish and remember from the magic.
I think it's something like most of the crew on board have the ability to hand those out to people on a sailing. Like they get one to hand out, and so we've gotten them from our stateroom attendant a couple of times. What I find is it's the crew that you treat, like you really engage with and you get to know, and treat them really well. Like occasionally they'll leave something in your room, or they'll give you so they're great. I mean, just for everyone out there, please don't ask for one. That's not the way to get one of these. The way to get one of these is to be really engaging with the crew and really be a friend to them. And the other thing is that it's just a certificate. There's no special thing conferred on you with it. It's just a nice little memento. So, but we've enjoyed them when we've gotten them. I should step back and ask the question. I also want to say, it sounds like you enjoyed Soul Cat. I think it's a great space on the Magic, and I share your opinion. It's a great place to just hang out. I think we hung out there the last time we were on the Magic, like almost every night. So it's a great spot. I should back up before we dive into ports. I wanted to ask you about you mentioned Palo, but I want to mention the booking experience, the pre-cruise, like booking activities, because this was 9, so you're in the silver booking, gold booking category right now. Given how port heavy this cruise was, how was the experience of booking the shore excursions and such? Was stuff still available at gold booking, and the stuff that you wanted to do were you able to get?
It was surprisingly good. And my husband and I are gold, but our friends are silver castaway. So we really only booked one thing in our booking window. And then we said, okay, we're going to hope that they can get it too. And then once the booking window opens up for silver castaway members, we'll look at everything together. We did it that way. And actually, everything was fine. I think they even got a bourbon tasting or a whiskey tasting, which I thought was going to be completely sold out, but we got that. And we ended up getting the port adventures that we wanted. And we booked everything through Disney just to be safe. If it's a port that we're familiar with and we know we can get, to and fro very easily, we'll do it on our own. But brand new ports, we're not risk takers that way. We're only risk takers with travel insurance, but we are not risk takers with missing a ship.
Yeah, no, I sympathize, and I tend to do the same. I mean, we've been to St. Thomas enough now that I'm getting to the point where it's like, let's just get a cab and go to whatever beach we want to go to. But yeah, if it's a brand new port, I think best to stick with Disney just to make sure that if anything goes wrong, you've got your way back to the ship. Let's dive into the ports then. So you said your first stop was St. Kitts, it sounded like. And what did you get up to in St. Kitts?
Well, something I'd recommend just for all of these ports, especially if it's somewhere you've never been before, or like us, we were just exploring it for the first time, is take advantage of that. We are here from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. Not that you need to get off the ship at 8 a.m.
That is, By the way, I should highlight that is a long time in port for many of these cruises because, like, when we were just on the Fantasy and like St. Thomas, I mean, like all aboard was like 4, maybe 4:30, and sometimes they got to leave a little earlier if they're like too far south. So like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. is nice. Was that for every port?
Every single port was 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Nice. That is really a benefit. So sorry I interrupted. Keep going with your with St. Kitts.
No, it's fine. So the beauty of that was that it gave us, even though we didn't have an extra sea day, we still had that balance to be able to enjoy the ship. So, in the morning, we could just take our time and have breakfast at cabanas and take our time getting off the ship and then enjoy the port. Most of the excursions that we scheduled didn't start until 10 or 11 a.m. and then maybe went until 4 or 5. So we still had just really nice balance there, which was fantastic. St. Kitts is an area that was our first port, right? So we were excited. We didn't have anything scheduled. And I will say that this is probably a port where an excursion is needed. It's one of the you walk off and it's not like a St. Thomas or like a St. Martin where everything is just right there and you can grab a beach chair. It's a little mix of some industrial and, some port shops, and you probably need a vehicle if you're really going to venture off. That day just happened to be a really, really hot day, right? Again, we knew we were traveling during hurricane season. So we didn't get the pour down of rain or wind, but we had a lot of humidity. So a really warm, warm day. But even so, we walked around the ports, we explored the shops. One of my girlfriends found some Pandora jewelry she really likes. She's collecting the cruise ship Pandora charms for her bracelet. So that was great. We had lunch there by the port. We really took our time there that day at St. Kitts. And then we just enjoyed the boat. We got off the ship maybe midday sometime. So we weren't rushed. We just, hey, first time here. Let's see what there is. And let's see if it's something that we want to come back to. And let's just enjoy it. And so that's what we did. And so not a super adventurous day in St. Kitts, but still, right, and we're still in the Southern Caribbean. So it was fantastic.
Nice. And so would you recommend the excursion you did?
Well, we didn't do one. It was, we
You were just on your own. Okay. Okay.
On our own.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
our own walking around.
nice. All right. So any highlights from the walk around? Any places you went to that you would recommend others visit?
Not really. And I think this is our fault. This is not St. Kitts' fault. This is our fault. I was chatting with my friends and my husband about this the other day to prep for the podcast. And we looked through our pictures and we said, we really only have one picture from there. It wasn't really memorable, but I think that's on us. That's not,
Yeah, no, fair.
it's not St. Kitts.
Fair. Yeah. I mean, I will say one of the nice things about longer times in port is you can get so at least in like Norway, we could get an excursion in, get back from the excursion and still have time to explore on our own, which is just really nice. And then we would, typically go find a spot to have lunch locally. Pro tip, if you can find the spot that the crew are going to, you're almost guaranteed good food at a reasonable price, and especially cheap drinks to the extent that they can be out there having a beer or something. And then we did what you did. We wandered around. And one of my favorite souvenirs from our Norway trip came from like a thrift shop near the port in one of the a secondhand shop that was near the port where the store was selling some locally made like cheese slicers and things. In Norway, I think it's silver is really the popular metal, but half the stuff now is made in China and just stamped with like Norway stuff. And so, we were actually getting something that had been made by a local artist because the woman was like, "Oh yeah, he lives up the road, and we need more." You just like call him up, and he like makes some more and brings them down. So anyway. Those kinds of things are the things you can find if you just wander around the port on your own. So I highly encourage that strategy. All right. Well, next day you were at St. Lucia, which we've been to St. Kitts. We've never been to St. Lucia. So what was St. Lucia like, and what did you get up to there?
Now this we loved. And we had never been there. Two of our friends who were with us on this cruise, they honeymooned there 10 plus years ago. So they were excited to go back and we were relying on them. We said, okay, well, you tell us what we should do. And so they actually found an excursion through Disney. And it turned out it was an adult only excursion. And this one had a bit of everything, which was fantastic because as I was looking through the different excursions available on the Disney website, the different port adventures, there were so many. And I wanted to do 3 or 4 of them. And I obviously couldn't, but they found this one that had just a bit of everything in it, and it was fantastic. So this one, let's see, we ported in St. Lucia, and we got off the boat and we boarded this, one of those double-decker boats, and I thought, "Oh, this is gonna be full." And it wasn't. It was an almost empty double-decker boat, and we were on the top, so maybe it felt empty, maybe the bottom was full, but it just didn't feel like it was a packed excursion. And this was maybe an hour-long sailing along the coast, and the waters were calm. It was a slow sailing, which was good because a lot of us tend to get motion sick. And so this worked for us. And it was great because we saw some incredible sights and things that you could only see or things that you've only heard about in magazines or read about in books. And the sightseeing along the coast was phenomenal. And then after about that, we sailed for about an hour down the coast. And then we had some free time at a beach. And it was in a little bay. So the waters were calm and some folks snorkeled and some folks just played in the water and other folks sunbathed. There was something for everyone, which was really, really fantastic. After that, we reboarded our boat and we docked somewhere, and from there we boarded a motor coach, which then took us to a coffee plantation. And at that coffee plantation, we had lunch, and that was fantastic as well because it was local food and it was phenomenal. And that was probably some of the best food we had on our Southern Caribbean adventure. I think this was also somewhere in here. We also did the mud baths as well. And I remember thinking, I wish we did the mud first, then the beach. But
Yeah.
and we didn't. We did it in reverse. It was
Yeah.
beach, then the mud. And we did the mud baths. And we weren't there for a long time. We were maybe there for 30, 40 minutes. And at first I thought, well, that doesn't seem like a big adventure and a lot of time. It was more than enough time. The mud baths were packed with people. It was shoulder to shoulder in the baths with people standing. You really couldn't move. So we did it, and then we got out and showered and checked that off the list.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We did the mud baths. And let's see, when we were at that coffee plantation, aside of an amazing meal, there were also tours that were being offered of the coffee plantation. And it started raining right about the time that the tours were starting. And so, right, we're from California. We're we don't do great in the rain. So for us, it was raining heavy. Probably for other people, it was just a little bit of drizzle. So some of our party went ahead and did the tour, and then some of us, myself included, we stayed back near the shops under some cover, and we were back on board around 4 o'clock that day. So a great adventure. That one was probably maybe 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. And again, still great. Took our time in the morning, got off the boat midday, great excursion, and still had time to explore St. Lucia and the port a little bit, which was fantastic.
The weather point is funny. Sam and I would have just been like, "Where's the Gore-Tex? Let's go." But I totally get you on that. How was the weather overall for the cruise? Because you mentioned sailing during hurricane season, so I kind of want to return to that for a second. Like, was it pretty rainy most days?
So overall, the weather was great. We had intermittent showers, right? Intermittent rain, but nothing that was going to ruin a port day for us. We weren't rained out on any days at all. So we had the intermittent showers, but like anything tropical, they're warm showers. And then we'd have that. And then sometimes it would just get really, really, really hot and humid. But again, nothing unbearable.
Well, after it rains and the sun comes out, yeah, it's like a steam bath out there. So yeah, for sure. For sure. Are you listening to our show because you want to make the most out of your next vacation? Great news. The fabulous team over at My Path Unwinding Travel can help guide you so you don't miss a thing. Their team of professional travel advisors are caring, knowledgeable, and experienced. It's why we use them to book our own travel. My Path Unwinding Travel is an authorized Disney vacation planner, which means they are recognized by Disney for their expertise and service. They have sailed on all the Disney ships, including in concierge, visited the theme parks, adventured with Disney, relaxed at Aulani, and so much more. Whether it's a Disney cruise, a theme park vacation, or Adventures by Disney, or if you are looking to expand beyond the mouse, My Path Unwinding Travel will elevate your next vacation planning experience. Even if you have already booked, reach out for a complimentary consultation to make your vacation even more magical. Ready to talk to the experts? Head over to mypathunwinding.com/DCL Duo or email dclduo@mypathunwinding.com so they know we sent you their way. Thanks, My Path Unwinding, for sponsoring today's show. Now back to the episode. All right. Okay. So after St. Lucia, we head to Dominica? Yeah. How was that? We haven't been to Dominica ourselves either. So what'd you get up to there?
So we did a beach day at a black sand beach. And so this was about a 3-hour excursion. Dominica is definitely a port where you need an excursion. It is an industrial port and there is nowhere to walk on your own. So you definitely need to either take a taxi or get an Uber or something, or have an excursion scheduled so that you're able to leave the port. And so this was it was booked through Disney. It was a 3-hour beach day. And so it was a guided tour in a small van, all down the coast. And so we had a great tour guide who talked to us about Dominica. We got the history of Dominica, all of that kind of great stuff that we love learning about and just hearing about, just, different areas of the world, different cultures. And it was just really fantastic. And then the tour guide stayed with us on the beach, right? Kind of a chaperone, if you will, and just kept an eye on us, made sure everybody was okay, had what they needed. The tour came with drinks and snacks at the beach as well. So it was really no frills. And we had beach chairs and umbrellas. We dropped our stuff off and got into the water. And we spent the entire time in the water, just enjoying ourselves. It was my first time on a black sand beach. And so they explained, right, why it's a black sand beach, right? All the volcanic activity, right? And that's how it gets there. And so that was great. And afterwards, they took us back to the port area, but we stopped in, like, right before entering the port. We stopped outside of it, and there was a big grocery store there. So if anybody needed, sundries or anything. And there also happened to be a market going, like a street fair type of market going on that day. So a lot of different tents, and it wasn't just, trinkets, but it was also different foods and different spirits and just different things like that, bakery goods and whatnot. And so we shopped through there a little bit too before getting back on board. So a lot of really good vendors, and that was a lot of fun. It was fun to explore. I will say that, like, most places where there's a grocery store right across the port, everything was really, really expensive. So if you needed something, you had to really need it to pay those prices for a few things.
Nice. All right. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. You said that the excursion overall, sorry if you said this, the excursion overall was 3 hours. How much of that was transportation to and from the beach, do you think?
Oh, I would say maybe a half hour each way.
Okay. So you got about a couple hours at the beach then. That's not terrible. Did you feel like one of the criticisms I have of Disney beach excursions sometimes is just like, it's so eaten up by the transport there and back that you get like, an hour or 90 minutes at the beach and it's like you're just getting settled. You're just starting to enjoy it. And then it's like, okay, you got to pack up. And like, how did you feel? Did you feel like you got enough time at the beach?
Yeah. So a little bit of the same. I mean, we were happy with what we had, but it would have been nice if it was an actual 3 hours at the beach, and then, the not counting the transportation time, right? I did feel a little bit cut short. I would have enjoyed more time at the beach.
Was there like a bar, a restaurant, anything? I mean, was it a beach that had services and amenities to it, or is it just the beach?
It was. There was a little snack shack, if you will, that sold different snacks and also sold different drinks. So it was no frills, right? It had clean bathrooms, showers, but nothing like bar service or, cocktail servers or anything like that.
Well, so, I mean, sounds like overall a good day. So let's move to Barbados. What'd you get up to in Barbados?
So this was about the time. So I think Barbados, it was Tuesday by now. We had our first, day on board was Friday. This is when we started feeling a little tired and that we needed a sea day. This would have been a perfect day for a sea day. Barbados in the morning when we arrived, it was raining. And I thought, oh, the day's gonna get rained out. So and it was raining what I would consider pretty hard. So we stayed on board, right? We stayed on board probably until about noon. So just, took our time, which was good because we all just slept in, all took our time, did the late breakfast at Cabanas, got there maybe around 10.
Not terrible. I know most Disney fans can't fathom sleeping in on a vacation, but I like that's what vacation's supposed to be, and especially like it always kills me. Cruising was supposed to be like ultimate, like sleep in, enjoy yourself, that sort of thing. So I don't know. That sounds like a fabulous start to the day to me. If it's raining outside, just sleep in. So I love it. I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
it.
Slept in and then probably right about noon we decided, okay, let's go ahead and let's get off the ship, right? We're in Barbados. We need to get off the ship. We can't just sit on the ship all day, even if there's a little bit of rain. But again, to your point, it was like a steam bath. It was so hot. um, but we got off the ship around noon, 12:30. So Barbados is one that there's a really long walk from where you actually, port to the actual, I guess, where you get off the ship and then to where the actual shops and the ports and everything are. And I started laughing as we were walking it, right? Because it's hot, the sun's beaming down on us, it's very humid. And I said, oh gosh, I wonder if this is like Lookout Key. Everything I'm hearing about Lookout Key, or I thought, well, if we can do this, we can do Lookout Key. This is not a big, it's not a big deal. It is what it is. And and so we did the walk and we looked at our watch. We're like, that was probably a good 20-minute walk. And we weren't slow. We were just walking to get there, but we were walking. It was hot. There was construction going on at the port. So the walkways were really, really narrow. Funny was that we discovered that there was, in fact, a shuttle, but we didn't discover the shuttle until we were getting ready to go back. And someone said, there's buses right here that will take you right back to your cruise ship.
Always a good reason potentially to watch the morning show because they will give you that kind of detail in the morning show. But yeah, because a lot of those industrial ports, it can be kind of a hike from the ship to the actual port entrance, and so yeah, they frequently have some kind of shuttle running. So yeah, that's a plug for the morning show, which admittedly we don't always watch, but they do cover that kind of stuff. So yeah,
We love the morning show.
But you slept in, right? Was this a day? This is yeah. So there you
Yep.
go. Yeah.
We slept in. So
Yeah.
so that was a really low key day for us. We, similar to St. Kitts, we just walked. We didn't leave the port. We walked around the different shops at the port. There were also two other ships in port at the same time, and everyone had the same idea. So the port itself and all the port shops and restaurants were jam packed with folks. But we did some shopping there. We found some cute, unique Christmas ornaments for our trees. So we picked up some of those things, things that we hadn't seen before. And we like to pick up little trinkets of the places we've traveled to for our tree. So so that was nice. And then we just found a bar that I think one of the crew members had told us about, like, hey, we all go here, drinks are cheap, the Wi-Fi is free, the service is good and it's quick, the food's fine, just if you want to check it out. So that's what we did. And apparently a lot of people did that too.
I said it before in the show, like ask the crew where they like to go. Cause not only do they know what's in and around the port to, grab a quick bite or cheap meal or whatever. They know the places to go to get this, like to your point earlier, the stuff you need that's not going to like break the bank. A lot of them too have also like, if they get some real time off, like, some of the more like officer folks or higher up folks who get maybe a little bit more time off in port at time, like they will go to a beach and spend a beach day, right? Or part of a morning at the beach. They can tell you what the different beaches are like. So yeah, that sort of thing. So yeah, I never hesitate to ask the crew. We have a friend of the show who, Alan, who's been on the show and has, sailed Disney Cruise Line extensively. And he goes on like, back to back to back to back to back to back, etc. cruises. And we were with him on the Fantasy recently, or sorry, on the Treasure Maiden. And he, I forget which port we were in, but he was like, we're like, what are you going to go to? And he said, I'm going to go to my favorite Chinese restaurant in the port. And we were like, middle of the Caribbean, you're going to Chinese. He's like, oh yeah, the crew recommended it to me a while back. It's actually pretty decent Chinese food. And so anyway, crew are a wealth of information about these ports because they are there week in, week out a lot of times on some of these sailings. So anyway.
You're reminding me now, you said Chinese restaurant. I don't remember which port stop we were in, but we were recommended a restaurant and it was the best Indian curry that we have ever had. And I thought, how are we getting such amazing Indian curry here in the middle, like, of the Southern Caribbean? But the food was fantastic.
There you go. All right. I think we have one port left, right? Antigua? What was Antigua like?
Now, this was the gem of our trip. And one of my girlfriends said to me when I was asking for, hey, just give me the reminders to prep for the podcast. She said, I want to keep Antigua a secret.
Ah. Well, hold on. We'll put on our special Patreon only portion of it. No, I'm kidding. To everyone out there listening, we will not hide this from you. But tell us about Antigua.
Antigua was just stunning. The water was stunning. The scenery was stunning. Just everything about it. The food was great. This was a place that we all said, we want to come back here. If there was another cruise that ported out of Antigua, yes, sign us up for that. Or another cruise stop or another cruise that has a port stop. Yes, absolutely. And we want to spend 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. here. We'd love to spend overnight here. It was our favorite. So we did have an excursion. And this was a port where when you pulled right into port, a lot of stuff was accessible. You could walk anywhere. You could take a taxi anywhere. It was just a very easy port to navigate. And so we had an excursion. This was it was just called Snorkel and Sail. And we felt like it was so much more than what was actually described in the little, port adventure description. So we left on a catamaran. Again, it wasn't crowded. Oftentimes you'll take those catamarans and you're shoulder to shoulder with people and it's packed. And this one was not. So everyone had space to spread out, which was great. We did another great sailing, like an hour-long sailing where we're just looking at coastline and we're hearing the history and just admiring just the beauty of the nature that is there in Antigua. And from there, we had some great snorkel spots. Now, this is one of those places where when you look down at the water, you can just see down to the bottom. And it was phenomenal. It was just gorgeous. So the snorkeling was fantastic. It was really great. And then after the hour-long sailing, the catamaran and the snorkeling, even then we had some beach time. So they, dropped anchor by, at a nearby beach. And there were snacks, there were drinks, and they did sandwiches and whatnot, sandwiches and chips. So nothing too elaborate. And we really just had a great time at this beach. We had almost another 45 minutes at this beach, which was great. I mean, even after an hour of snorkeling, we were a little tired, but it was just nice because we just felt pampered and that this was so wonderful. And once we tied off there on the beach, right? Some folks got out, walked along the beach, did some different stuff. Some folks continued to snorkel. Some just enjoyed the water. That's what we did. But what we noticed was right next to us was also not right next to us, but a little bit of ways away. We could see it. There was another boat that looked just like our catamaran. And we noticed it because we could smell the food coming from there. Well, this one was the snorkel and sail plus lobster lunch. And they were barbecuing lobster on the back of the catamaran. And it smelled incredible. And I was prepping for the podcast, one of my girlfriends said to me, tell them to book the lobster boat because it was only $25 more than the excursion we booked. And it smelled well worth
Nice.
So it's the do that. And so it was a really, really great time that we had. I mean, we saw sea turtles, we saw just incredible sea life, and it was beautiful and it was easy to see. I mean, you could see the sea life without snorkeling. You didn't want to put your face in the water. You could still see stuff. So that was just quite amazing. And then we, took our sail back to the ship. And it's funny. It seems like, we spent an hour coasting along the coast and sailing and having things pointed out. But getting back, that seemed a lot faster for some reason. And maybe that's just the way it always is. You speed up a little bit, I'm not sure. But it was great. And we got back to port. And this was another one that was a couple of hours long. I think it started around 11 a.m. and probably another 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. So plenty of time to sleep in, have breakfast, enjoy the ship, get off the ship, and then still time to explore the port. And so that's what we did afterwards. After our excursion ended about 4:00, we walked around, we did some shopping, we found a bar right there at the port. And it was just a great way to cap off the day. A lot of really fun people watching and the ship, we could see it. It was right there. So we knew we were, safe to get back to the ship on time. And Antigua was hands down our absolute favorite port. Secret is out. And I'd love to go back.
Nice. Well, it sounds like an amazing port. Yeah, I mean, the Southern Caribbean ports in general, I think, are some. I don't know if the ports themselves are excellent ports or just because, Disney doesn't cruise there that often, so that they are sort of more lesser known ports for folks when they visit. But there's a lot of gorgeous ports there. I do miss the longer Disney sailings you mentioned up front, because those 11-night cruises, they can really get to the ABC Islands is what they call them, and those are some really special kind of faraway places that we really enjoyed. So I keep watching out for those longer cruises.
I'm going to look out for that. I would love to do a similar itinerary again, like despite the really long flight and whatnot. To your point, like the ABC Islands, how often do you get to go to those with Disney? So I'm going to keep my eye out.
Before we head into rapid fire, which everyone out there, forewarning, it's going to be me doing rapid fire today. So who knows how that's going to go. But before we get into rapid fire, I guess I wanted to ask, you're taking a Disney cruise and there's one big port missing here, or I guess two big ports missing here, Castaway Cay and Lookout Cay. Neither of them on your itinerary. So you took a Disney sailing in the Caribbean, but did not stop at either of the sort of, quote unquote, private island destinations for Disney Cruise Line. How was that? Did you miss them at all?
Only a little. I mean, I love Castaway. And at the time of the sailing, we had not yet gone to Lookout. And so I didn't know what I was missing. And so I definitely missed Castaway. And even our friends said that, like, oh, we did like the private island thing. We liked Castaway last year on the Fantasy. And that was the only thing that was maybe missing. But we still had some incredible places, right?
Yeah.
I would take this itinerary again, or a similar one, even if it didn't include Castaway.
Yeah, it's a good reminder. You can have a great Disney cruise without stopping at either of those islands. I think both afford kind of a bonus, like they're a bonus stop. I would say for those taking their first Disney cruise, I typically encourage go out of Port Canaveral and get the stop at Castaway. We love adore Lookout Key. So Sam and I are big fans. We actually prefer it over Castaway, but I think that first cruise experience, you want like the original OG Disney Cruise Line, like go out of Port Canaveral, stop at Castaway, experience that island, and then next time you go, if you can get to Lookout, I would highly recommend it. But yeah.
I agree. My husband would agree with you too, because anytime we've cruised, he said, well, what's the point of flying all the way to Florida? We're not going to go to Castaway.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great, I mean, they're both great port stops. Both great port stops in my book. So yeah. All right. Well, Sabrina, I'm going to skip over kind of some of the onboard experiences given the timing that we've got on this episode, but I'm glad you enjoyed Soul Cat Lounge, and I'm sure you enjoyed what was probably a little bit of minimal time on board the ship given these extended port days. But I'm going to take us into the round where we ask some arbitrary questions, apply some arbitrary rules. And, I don't really apply judgment, so we're going to skip that part. But it's the round we know as rapid fire. So, all right, we're going to do just some quick favorites here. And I'll start off. And then you were on the show before, but it's been a while. So we'll do kind of the standard stock and trade rapid fire. And I'll ask you to start with, who is your favorite Disney character? And it can be anyone in the Disney-owned universe of companies, which now include people like Bart Simpson. So who is your favorite Disney character?
Dumbo.
All right. Oh, it's great. See, now Sam's missing out because Sam loves Dumbo. She just ran the Dumbo Double Dare, and she was claiming how much she loved Dumbo. All right. Favorite Disney movie?
Oh, the original Lion King.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's a great movie. Favorite Disney song?
So I absolutely love Baby O' Mine from Dumbo, but it always makes me cry. So then I will have to take something from Lion King, like that very first opening song, Circle of Life. That's my favorite.
Great song. I'm going to ask a different question than Sam would ask, and ask you favorite Disney villain.
Ooh. I have Maleficent ears in my closet hanging right now, and so and that's usually my standard go-to Halloween costume. So on a Disney cruise, so I'll have to say Maleficent.
All right, man. In California, I hope I get the right answer to this question. But favorite Disney park?
Oh, West Coast, Best Coast. Hands down.
All right. Disneyland or California Adventure?
Oh, well, I'm always going to say Disneyland. My heart will always be with Disneyland. My dad was actually born on July 17th, 1955. And so Disneyland is always a very special place for our family. And we also love California Adventure. So package deal.
Fantastic. All right. Let's shift over to Disney Cruise Line for a second. Favorite Disney ship?
Oh, well, I know you guys always say your favorite is the one that you're on, and I get that. For me, gosh, let's see. I kind of want to say the Wonder, and then the Fantasy is a close second.
But both are great ships. The Wonder is dear and dear to our heart for sure. We can't wait. We're sailing on her to Alaska later this year and can't wait to do that itinerary. Favorite rotational dining restaurant?
Animators.
Okay. We already know Palo Brunch versus Palo Dinner, but so it sounds like Palo Brunch is the winner there.
I've never done Palo Dinner. So by default,
right. By default,
Palo Brunch is the winner.
All right. Give me one favorite savory item on Disney Cruise Line that you really like.
Oh, that would probably be the lasagna at Palo Brunch.
Excellent choice. See, I'm just going to put a plug in here, Sam. I'm right. All right. So, and you're not here to defend yourself.
Let me just say, last Saturday, we just stepped off the Disney Dream. So that was our first time doing Prima Notte, and the first time we ever tasted the gnocchi from Palo.
Excellent. The Prima Notte is such a sleeper hit experience for people who haven't done it. Like, go do it now. It's so worth it. So good. So good.
Yeah. My husband said, let's do this every single time if we can. Right.
And so they have different pins across some of the different ships. So every time you do Prima Notte, you can start your pin collection. I don't know if it's by class of ship or by specific ship, but we got a different pin on the Treasure than we did on the Fantasy than we did on the Wonder, I'm pretty sure. So, or the Magic. Yeah.
Uh-oh. That's
This looks like it's going to be a problem, Sabrina, but no.
it's going to be a problem. So yes, the lasagna, absolutely. And then obviously the gnocchi, because I just tried it and it was phenomenal.
Nice. Favorite sweet item?
Oh, Mickey churro waffles. And I was pleasantly surprised on this Southern Caribbean cruise, they served them twice.
Nice. Yeah, that is a rarity. Nice. I'm trying to think of a different question that I can ask than Sam might. Favorite Disney Cruise Line souvenir that you've ever gotten?
Oh, that's a great question. A couple of years ago, my husband bought these pirate goofy ears for pirate night, and they no longer sell them, or at least we haven't seen them on the last few cruises, and he always gets compliments on them about his pirate goofy ears. So that's just been a fun souvenir, and we take it on every cruise.
That's cool. Favorite bar or lounge space on board Disney Cruise Line?
Well, that's a tough one. I would ooh, hmm. I'm going to have to say it is Soul Cat Lounge.
Nice. It's a great space. A lot of people, were skeptical, and I think there's some people who are a bit critical, but I think it was a nice addition. I think the old, Promenade, was it Promenade Lounge? Yeah, Promenade Lounge. I think it was a nice upgrade to that. So yeah,
It's great. The drinks are great. We saw a lot of creative drinks being made. It was our espresso martini go-to spot. It was the old-fashioned go-to spot. Something for everyone.
nice. All right. Favorite Disney Cruise Line stage show?
Oh, okay. So I mentioned I was on the Dream, just got off the Dream last week, and I was dying to see Beauty and the Beast and only saw 30 minutes of it because I got sick. So I would say, but the first 30 minutes were phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, Sam would say you have the right show there. Actually, she would say Tale of Moana now, but Beauty and the Beast was her favorite forever. So
Yeah. I haven't been on the Treasure yet, so can't judge Moana, but I'll give it to the 30 minutes I saw Beauty and the Beast still floored me compared to, I've seen Frozen a few times on a few different ships, and when it was at California Adventure, yeah, Beauty and the Beast is the winner. Sam was right.
Nice. All right. If you could wave your magic wand with a little bit of pixie dust and sail anywhere in the world, even if Disney Cruise Line doesn't go there, where are you going?
We touched on this a little at the top of the show. I want the around the world. I want the Disney Cruise around the world tour, and we hit every single park, including a stop at Aulani.
Nice. Dear Disney, with 13 ships, maybe one of them can just do a little around the world sailing. I think that'd be great. All right. Well, thank you for playing Rapid Fire. As I said, I apply no judgment in this round. I think all the answers are great. And I usually learn something in Rapid Fire. So that was great. What's next? Did you get a placeholder on board? You eyeing a particular sailing? Yeah. What's next for you?
Yeah. So we have an eastbound transatlantic planned for May.
Well, you're just making up for all the sea days you didn't get on the Southern Caribbean.
Exactly. So we're so excited for this. This is coming up here in just a few months, and we will port out of Port Canaveral, one stop at Castaway, and then 6 glorious days at sea before we hit the Azores. And 2 stops in Portugal, 2 stops in Spain. And we are so looking forward to 13 nights aboard the Fantasy.
Nice. Well, Sabrina, be sure to reach out if you'd like to come back and talk to our audience about that one. We always love talking about those unique sailings on Disney Cruise Line, and the transatlantic is only offered twice a year and only once a year in each direction. So it's a great cruise for folks to hear about. I also find it to be like you're killing it with the incredible deals here, because those transatlantic cruises on a per night basis, like some of them, I think even total cost are less than a 7-night sailing on Disney Cruise Line on some of the ships. So
you are not wrong, Brian. I shared that with some of our table mates last week. I said, listen, the price for 2 weeks was the price for a 7-night. So you just couldn't go wrong on this one. If you have the time, do it.
It's a time and the time of year. That's just, I mean, we've got school age kids, so it's like impossible for us to really do it unless we can find someone to watch them for the 2 weeks, which is also a near impossibility. So yeah, but that drives down the cost of that cruise, and it's a fabulous we've heard nothing but good things about that cruise. So reach out, let us know when you get back, and we'd love to have you back on. But for now, Sabrina, I'll just say thank you for coming on the show and sharing your fabulous experience with the Southern Caribbean cruise with our audience. We really, really appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Well, thanks to everyone out there for listening this week. We really, really appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you can keep getting great content from us every week. In fact, twice a week we publish shows. So be sure to hit the subscribe button to get all of those great episodes. And if you want to watch us live, we have a live show now every week, Monday nights, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern over on youtube.com/DCL Duo. So be sure to head over and check that out. If you want to help support the show, be sure to hit those 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And if you leave us a written review, a 5-star written review, we will read it at the top of one of our main episodes. So please head over there and hit those 5 stars. Of course, you can also help support the show by supporting our fabulous show sponsor, My Path Unwinding Travel. If you want to book your next Disney vacation, head over to mypathunwinding.com/DCL Duo or email them at dclduo@mypathunwinding.com so they know we sent you their way. If you've got questions or you'd like to connect with us, the best way to do that is to head over to dclduo.com. It's got links to all of our things, full catalog of the podcast episodes, including a searchable catalog for the podcast, links off to our vlog, a link to our Etsy store where we sell some fun fan-inspired magnets, link to our Patreon if you'd like to help directly support the show each and every month. Just head over to the website or patreon.com/DCL Duo. Also has a way for you to sign up for our Substack newsletter that we're hoping to start really pumping out monthly here at least, and a few blog articles that we've written. So DCLDuo.com is the best way to connect with us. You can also, of course, email us at info@DCLDuo.com or reach out to us on our voicemail line at 402-413-5590. That's 402-413-5590. The DCL Duo podcast is not affiliated with Disney Cruise Line, the Disney Company, or the Disney family of theme parks. The views expressed on the show are solely those of the individuals on the podcast and in no way reflect the views of the Disney Company or Disney Cruise Line. If you have questions about a Disney cruise or a Disney vacation, please contact the great folks over at My Path Unwinding Travel or Disney directly or your own travel agent. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time for another fabulous adventure with the DCL Duo. Good night.